Hello, I'm going to show you how to do a basic flat wash. Before you start, you need to prepare. Now the preparation is really important. I'm using a basic Cotman watercolour set and a round soft watercolour brush. You'll need also a pencil and an eraser, a nice large water container. It's really important to have a large pot of water. We'll go to that more, but generally lots of water is better. You'll also need some watercolour paper. This is Saunders Waterford, which is a nice pure cotton watercolour paper, but really any good quality watercolour paper will be fine. I'm using a cold pressed, or that's a medium surface paper, and that will help with your washes. Before we work, you need to tape it down. Now I recommend taping it down all the way around on four sides. I'm just going to show you that now. And this will keep it nice and flat when you're working on it. And if you're doing a full size painting, you'll end up with a nice white border all the way around. As you can see, I've got a lot of cut on my table. What I recommend doing is clearing away all that mess so that all you have is the drawing board. I'll move this away. On your table. If you have lots of cut on it, it's going to be difficult to work. I'm going to move this put it away. And all I have now are the things I need for the wash. The drawing board, the watercolour paper, and my paints, brush, pencil and tape. Before you start your wash, you'll need to prop the board up at an angle. Now there's different ways of doing this. You can either get some books or a box and put it behind your drawing board, and you'll need to position it so that your board is this angle. Now this angle is probably between 30 and 45 degrees. Okay. You can buy tabletop easels that will fit on your table, or you could work actually on an easel. But when I'm painting, I like to position the drawing board like this and put it on my lap. It only works if you've got quite a large drawing board, but you want to position it so it has a nice angle between 30 and 45 degrees. And with this way, you can actually adjust the angle very easily and very quickly when you're painting, which is really handy. Position your paint and brushes to one side. You don't want to be reaching, and the most classic mistake that I see beginners make is to have their brushes or their palette on their board, and then when they start painting it, they panic and they forget to have the board at an angle. So you make sure that you remove everything from your drawing board like so. Get your board at a nice angle. Get comfortable. I always like to kind of stretch my shoulders a bit so that when you're working, you're going to work nice and loosely. Right, here we go. I hope you'll have a go. I think you'll enjoy it. So first of all, I'm going to draw a rectangle to do our first wash in. Don't need to make it too big, and you don't have to use a ruler. I'm just going to label it a flat wash. Right, you're probably wondering why it's called a flat wash. It's not called a flat wash because you paint it flat. We definitely don't paint it flat. It's really important to paint a flat wash at an angle. The reason it's called a flat wash is because we want to create a really flat, even effect all the way down the page. And another thing we want to do is also create a beautiful transparent effect with the watercolours. So throughout this wash, you need plenty of water. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and make the water flow down the page a little bit like a stream, and as it flows down, the paint will disperse and hopefully magically create a lovely smooth effect. But the main secret to this is to keep the water moving and flowing down the page and the watercolour paint and the paper will do the rest of the work for you. So starting off then, you need to put plenty of water into your palette. Now, I'm going to put this back in a second and put it back on the table, but I just want to show you. I'm going to go backwards and forwards between the water pot and the well, and make sure I've loaded plenty of water with my brush. You can release the water on the side like that. Don't be tempted to get the water pot and pour it in. You won't get the control. Just go backwards and forwards until you have enough water. And you always need more water than you think. So a nice big blob of water. It's important to do that first. You'll see why in a second. So once I've got enough water, I think I've got enough water for my wash, I then dip my brush into the paint. Now if you've got a pan, you'll need to rub at the pan, but I've got some soft watercolour paint from a tube, and you just need to dip that in really and go backwards and forwards until you get a nice dark blue. Mix it darker than you think, because when it goes on the paper, it will appear lighter because the paper will shine through the transparent watercolour paint. And after, when it dries, it will also dry a shade lighter. So you can see I've mixed quite a dark blue, and also give it a really good mix. You don't want kind of lumps of watercolour paint. Really good mix. There we go. I'm going to put that back on the table now. I mean, you can hold it, but I just think it'll make it a bit easier if I have it on the table. And we're ready to go. So first step is to start at the top. Load your brush right up. So remember, we're going to use plenty of water, and come along the top and work your way along. Don't go too slowly, but be careful. When you get to the ends, you can work on the side a bit. Can you see I've got a nice big blob of paint, and that is the secret. And just guide that paint down, and it should almost run down. Now another word that watercolour artists use for this blob is a bead, but I prefer using the word blob. I think it describes it more accurately. And then, you see I'm speeding up a bit. I started off quite slowly just to show you, but once you get more confident, you can be quite quick with it and just bring it down, and don't press down heavily. Just pull it down and it will just flow down the page. If you see that blob drying out, then add more water to the blob, and look at that, it's just coming down, and magically, as I bring it down, you get this beautiful transparent effect. Now don't be tempted to stop, and can you see there it's just starting to get a little bit less paint, so I'm going to load up that blob with more water and bring it down. I'll go a bit faster now, so you can go faster if you want to. Look, really nice and fast. It doesn't really matter as long as you're guiding it down, and I'm automatically getting a fantastic transparent flat wash. It's perfectly even, perfectly smooth. I'm not doing it. It's the fact that the paper is running down the page. Now when you get to the bottom, you'll have that blob, and you can't leave that blob there. Don't be tempted to put the board flat now, because that paint will run back up and create an unpleasant effect. Get your piece of tissue paper, dry off your brush, and then you use your paintbrush a little bit like a sponge, and you just absorb, or the brush will suck up the rest of that blob. And don't do too much. So I've taken it off. Now that's perfect. Now you need to leave it to dry, but don't put it flat, because as I said before, if you put it flat, the paint at the bottom will run back into the dry paint at the top, and it will create an effect called a back run, which we don't want. Sometimes we will want to do it purposely, but in this case we're trying to create that lovely even flat wash. have a go. Right, well hopefully you've had a go at doing that and hopefully you've enjoyed it. What I thought I'd do is to show you the wash again. So I'm going to do another flat wash here. Okay. And I'm going to show you all the things that could go wrong with it. So here we are, flat wash again. The secret to getting good at doing these washes is just to practice. So don't be worried if it's gone wrong. I'm going to show this little doing the wash again and explain the things that can go wrong. And once you kind of know those kind of the possible mistakes you can make, try and iron them out and just practice it. Keep practicing until you can get a really even flat wash. It's kind of the secret to most parts of watercolour painting. I have students or people I've been teaching for years, and sometimes it can be this technique that I show usually in the first week of a watercolour class that they maybe have forgotten, or they've forgotten how important it is, and it can be letting down their painting. So it's one of the most basic techniques in watercolour painting, but probably the most important technique in watercolour painting. So here are the things that can go wrong. So starting off, I'm going to paint along here. Now can you see, as I paint along, there is no blob at all, and often people think that, oh well, they've got more control. They're scared of that blob, and I think, well, I can get away with it and I can spread it. And what they're doing is they're just spreading the paint. And look, I've run out of paint now, so I'm now going to add some more, and then it's a bit uneven, so people will tend to kind of go back into it and try and smooth it out. These are all kind of classic mistakes that beginners can make. So don't be tempted to go back into the wash. Look, this is a very good paper and a very good quality watercolour paint I'm using, so I'm kind of getting away with it. But trust me, it won't work, and especially when you're doing layers, what you'll find is that if you go back into a wash, the paint underneath will get lifted and you'll end up with very muddy effects. So let's load it up again. I want to show you how it should be. I'm loading it right up with paint here now. So I get that blob. The other advantage about having a big blob or big bead of paint is it's much faster. It's a much faster way of painting. Another effect that you'll get if you use a correct wash technique is you'll get an effect called granulation, and it's where because there's enough water, the paint particles in the pigment are able to flow around, and what they do is they spread themselves out evenly and settle into the lumps and bumps in the paper. And when they dry, you get this fantastic kind of sparkly effect. It's called granulation, but it's kind of the basis of a lot of watercolour painting, and it can make a watercolour look really, really beautiful. It also gives it a more transparent effect. You can probably see already, this bit here has got this transparent look, and the bit at the top I did where I didn't have enough water, it's got a very flat, dull effect. So I'm coming in. Now let's do something else that you might make a mistake with. Some artists will tend to push down heavily like this. You see how I'm doing it? And you're pushing down heavily, or painting like the side like that and pushing it down. Can you see? But you want to use the tip of the brush or the end part of the brush, and all you're doing is coaxing it down. And you don't have to go backwards and forwards. You could swish it like that. The main thing is you're guiding the paint down. Just think of it flowing down the page. Don't press down heavily. If you press down heavily, what you'll do is you'll make marks on the paper, and if you've ended up with lots of lines or marks, it's because you've been pressing down too heavily. So nice and loose, nice and relaxed. You've heard the phrase loose watercolour. Been having plenty of water and a nice angle will allow you to paint loosely. So there I am at the bottom now, and I'm just going to take that off there. Don't be tempted to use your tissue paper. That's another mistake, because you'll take too much off and you'll end up with a white mark like that. So the brush will give you control. It's all about control, wash techniques. Just smooth that out. See, I've got the control there. One last blob there, take it away. Perfectly smooth. As I went down, I became more relaxed and used more water. So this bottom area you'll see has a nice granulation effect, really lovely and transparent. This is the top area where I was going very slowly, not enough paint, and you get this really uneven, sort of boring, not very transparent effect. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this demonstration of a flat wash. Remember to keep practicing. Once mastered, you'll be amazed at how this simple technique will really improve your painting and improve your confidence.